Hi everyone, today Salesforce Development Day 27. Let's see what we are going to learn today. We'll talk about the previous session overview and we'll take one of the use case to implement a batch class. And we'll talk about the email programming, how to write an email programming and what is messaging dot single email message. And we'll see the different methods and we'll try to send one email. If we wanted to send an email from Apex, how can we send an email from Apex? And we'll take a use case, we'll implement a one email program. Similarly, we'll implement the same email program in the batch class. And we'll talk about the Garner limits. Conclusion, today's interview questions. Quickly, so what did we learn in previous session?
Drawbacks and the database classes,
Database,
database method,
DMS
insert
statements
method,
and database, synchronous, asynchronous
asynchronous operations,
batch programming,
and batch
effects,
class.
types of asynchronous operations. You need a batch class.
Right. So in the last class, we started the asynchronous and we have seen the Apex batch programming. So if we wanted to implement a batch class, we have seen that there are 3 steps. First step is that we need to mention the access modifier global and we need to specify the database.batchable interface. So syntax is global class name implements database.batchable. And within this, we will write a logic. And the second step is we will mention the methods. There are 3 methods: start method, execute method, finish method. So inside the class, inside the batch class, so we will implement a method. Start method has a return type database.query locator. And similarly, execute method does not have any return type. Finish method also does not have any return type. And for the start, execute, finish, there is a parameter which is called as a database.batchable context. Every method has this database.batchable context. And apart from this, execute method has another one which is called as a list of S object. You can specify any name here, parameter name. And the third step is invoke the batch class. So in order to invoke the batch class, you need to use this database.execute batch so that here we can mention the batch name and what are the batch size. And then we can track the status of the batch class by using the either Apex job or by using we have a object called async Apex job. So async Apex job also we will use it. By running this query, we can know that. Now today we will see one of the use case, the batch class implementation. Create a batch class to update all the account records by assigning the values. We have few values here. Basically, we are going to update all the account record in Salesforce. So right now, if I go to the Salesforce and let me open the app. So sales application. So inside the sales application, we have an object called account object. And if I click on an account object, I can view how many records are there. So in account object, I'm selecting the all accounts. Right now, there are 39 items are there. All these 39 items, I wanted to update certain values. And these 39 items, I'll be dividing these batches by mentioning the size by. So basically, I'll be updating the account rating, account industry, account annual revenue, and then active status. What are the status is there? Active is there. So that is all about the batch class. That is all about the batch class program. So what we are doing is we are writing the batch class in order to update all the account record in the organization, and how we are doing it by dividing the records to have various batches of size. Instead of running all 39 in one batch, we will be dividing that by size. So let's go to the developer console. Now, right now we are going to implement a batch class, file, new Apex class. Here, what I'm doing, I'm updating the account record. So it is a update account batch job. Update account batch job. Now, whenever we are implementing the batch class, we should use the access modifier global. Global class, class name, and then we have to specify implements. Implements and the interface is database dot. We have to use the batchable. And within this, just mention the S object. This is the class, how we declare it. Global class, class name, implements, database.batchable, S object. Now within this class, I have three methods. As soon as I write this, it started giving me the error. Because that interface, whatever this interface is there, this interface expect the start method, execute method, finish method. As soon as I write this implements database.batchable, it is saying that this interface expect the methods, but these methods are not available within the class. So automatically it is displaying the error. So I need to implement a start method. I need to implement an execute method. And then we'll have a finish method. Three methods: start method, execute method, finish method. Now the start method, I need to use the access modifier global and database dot query locator, database dot query locator, and then start method. This is my start. And similarly, I have a execute method global void execute. This is execute method. Then I have a finish method. Global void finish. Now, I have written this, but still it is giving me the error because start, execute, finish method is expecting the parameter. Without parameter, if you declare it, it will not qualify. So we need to specify the parameter here. What is the parameter that we have to give in order to link this, execute all this method in order to communicate with each other? We need to give the interface here. The interface is database.batchable context. And you can give any name here. So I'm giving the B context and then finish. All three has a same thing. All three has same interface. Now, still it is giving me the execute method because execute method has a two parameters. One more parameter is I need to pass the list. So what I'll do is I'll pass list of S object. List of S object. I'll say that record to process. Record to process. Now, if I save this, all the errors will go away. Still, it has an error because this is a return type. I need to give a return. There has to be, it has to be written something. So how can we return? Basically, I need to write a query here. Start method, is need to be having the return type here. So in order to do that, I need to build a query. So for now, our query is on the account. Select ID, comma, name, comma, rating, industry, comma, annual revenue. And then let's take the active __ C from account. I'm querying all the records. I'm querying all the records. Now this everything I'll put it into the string. I'm placing this everything into the string. Now I'll store this into the string. String, this is a query. This is query. Now here I need to write database dot get query locator. Get query locator. I need to pass this query. Whatever the query is there, I need to pass the query. Right? So I need to pass the query. Now here, what I can do is I need to return the return type should be database.query locator. Database should be return type is database.query locator. Now we have this information. Now here I'm querying it, I'm getting the information. Then what can I do is now I have to return it. Now if I write simply return null, what will happen? I'm returning the null, but will it really pass the information to execute method or not? Will it really pass the data to the execute method or not? Because the return type, it says null. I'm not returning the query. I'm not returning the query. It should be returning the query. So instead of writing like this, what I'll do is return. Can I write like this? What I'm doing, I'm returning the data here. I'm returning the data. Instead of storing into another place, again doing it, I'm just writing here return database.get query locator query. Now, what happens is whenever my batch class executes, first it will execute the start method. First, it will execute the start method. In the start method, it will try to execute this query. And this query after this is a string. Execution will happen here, database.query locator. So whatever the output is there, this output, what I'm doing is I'm passing to the here. So internally it will be passed. Internally it will be passed. Now here I'm taking as a list of S object, but we are actually querying the account. We are actually querying the account. So why I'm taking the list of S object is whether you are querying the account or whether you are querying the lead or whether you are querying the any opportunity or a custom object, anything if you are querying it. It is basically, we need to get that if I write a list of S object, it doesn't matter what you are querying it. So list of S object is nothing but a generic. Whatever you are querying, just pass it here. Just pass it here. That means I'm writing here the query, but when I pass it to the execute method, I'm saying here the parameter, the data type, I'm saying list of S object. So the list of S object will be whatever the query you are doing it. Now, it's done. It is passing the information to here. Now I have the data of this. Now I have the data of this. So what I can do in the execute method, I need to write a business logic. Business logic. What is my business logic? I need to update the account records. I need to update this rating industry annual revenue active. So what I'll do is, if first I'll cross verify, is my list has any data in it? Is my list has any data in it? If there is really any data, then go inside. Now here, what I'll do is list of account. List of account. I'm taking a collection here because once I update the data, I'll be storing the information into the one list. So for that, I need here ACC list equal to new list of account. Now, whatever this data is there, this data I'll convert into the account objects. So that means whatever I'm getting here, the data, whatever I'm getting here, I need to loop through that. For loop S object. So let's say SOPG colon, I'm looping through the record to process. Now, as soon as I start looping through it, I will have a records. Each record I'll be having it. So what I'll do is account ACC record equal to basically that whatever the S object is there. S object is there, that S object I'll convert into the account. Whatever I'm getting the S object, that I'll convert into the account. I'll convert into the account. Now I'm taking this record, I'm looping through that record, right? So each record I'm converting into the account. Now I have a complete data here. Now what I'll do is ACC record dot. I'll take a rating equal to, I'll say hot, and ACC record dot industry equal to, let's say, manufacturing. And then ACC record dot annual revenue equal to 7,50,000. And ACC record dot active. Yes. Okay. So these are the records. Now finally what I'll do is I'll put everything into the list. I'll add everything into the list. ACC list dot add. ACC list dot add. Now everything I have pushed into the ACC list. Now the next thing is that I need to insert the record. I need to update the record. Now I'm coming out of for loop here. Now after the for loop, I'll check if acc.list is empty. If it is not empty, go inside. Then within this, I'll try to update. So what I'll use is database.update. Database.update. I'll take the ACC list, comma, false. Fine. So this is the logic that I have written. Querying the data in the start method, passing the data to the execute method. Execute method will take this record to process. It will check whether I have a data in this or not. If there is a data, loop through this record to process. While looping through each record, convert that into the account record. Then set the values here, update the values. So whatever the values are there, just update it and push it to the list. Now, finally, I'm checking whether my list has a data or not. If there is no, if there is a data, then I'll try to update it. In case if there is no data, I'll not update it, right? So this is the normal, which we know that, right? So right now I have written the business logic. I have written the business logic. Next one is a finish method. Next one, finish method. Let's suppose when I'm executing this, when I'm executing the batch class, while executing the batch class, I wanted to check the details of job in the finish method. I wanted to check the details of the job. That means what is the status of the job, right? Basically, I wanted to query the data here in order to check the what is the job and how it is running, whether it is run perfectly or not. Those all things, what I'll do is I'll try to query that. So in order to query that, we use a async apex job. This is my object, async apex job. This is my job. So job details, and then I'll query the record. Because right now I'll be having the data here. I'll be having the ID. Whenever this batch is getting executed, there is a ID will be there, where the ID will be within the p context dot get job ID. So what I'll do is select ID comma status. Let's take total job items. How many job items? And how many jobs are processed? Job item processed. Is there any error? So number of errors. Number of errors. That's it. From, I'll take async apex job. This is the object name. Where ID equal to colon. Now ID will be present in this b context dot get job ID. Now from this, I'll know that in the finish method, how many jobs are completed. How many jobs are completed. Now here, if you wanted to print the details, you can print the details, system.debug. Now let's say job details I wanted to print. Job details I wanted to print. Invalid type, why it is saying invalid type? Async apex job, job details. Let me try to query this. Execute. Async apex job. Number of errors. Status, total job items processed. Let me do one thing, new, let's click on file, open, object, async, apex job, click on query. So we need ID, job type, status, job items processed, total job item, number of items, query. So let's take this. Now let's say. Right. So what we have doing it, I have written the start method, execute method, finish method. 3 methods which I have implemented within the batch class. Start method is just querying the record and returning the database.get query locator. And the execute method is it's doing the business logic. The business logic is whatever the data is getting from the start method in the record to process. I'm looping through that record to process and I'm updating the related field values within the each record. Then finally, I'm updating the account record. Finally, I'm updating the account record. Once this execute is done, then I'm checking that in the finish method, just to know for our purpose, how many jobs are succeeded, how many jobs are failed. Like this is just, it will give the information about the job, whether it is successful or not, and how many jobs item processed. If there are any errors, what are the different errors? Now, any question in this batch class? Any questions in the batch class?
My question. So if I want to specify for this batch, many records should process. How can I?
Sorry?
For example, if I wanted to process 1,000 records for one batch,
Mm-hmm.
can I do in that way?
Yes, this you can do it. So basically, this coding does not change it. How you are executing the batch will be decided. Let's assume that this records will be taken 10,000 records or 5,000 records. Now, what I'll be doing is after writing this class, I'll go to the anonymous window. What I'll do is, in order to test this, I'll create a object for batch class. So let's assume that this is a ACC batch equal to new update batch. Now, this is I'm creating the object. Now, next step is I need to invoke the batch. When I'm invoking the batch, it's up to us, up to the developer that how do I wanted to execute the batch? All 10,000 records at a time I wanted to execute it, or do I wanted to divide it? So that is done in the database dot execute batch. Database dot execute batch. Now here, if you are just giving the batch and you are not giving any size, right? Your default size will be 200. Default size of the execution is 200. But what I'll do is I'll divide this into the 5. That means what will happen if I say 5? If I have a 50 records, if I have a 50 records in the account object, if I divide this batch to 5, that means each transaction, it will execute 10 records. Each transaction, it will execute. So first, it will execute the batch 1. Right, in the batch 1, 10 records it will execute. Next, it will go to the batch 2. Again, it will execute the 10 records. Like this, I am executing the batch in 5, divided into 5. So total 50 records. So I'm saying the system that whatever the count that I have, divide that by the 5. For example, if I have a 36, right? So if I say 36 by 5, 36 records are there, right? 39 records are there. So if I say 39 record, now 39 records by 5, it is like a 7 batches. 7 records. That means batch 1 around 7 records, batch 2 around 7 records, batch 3 around 7 records, batch 4 around 7 records, batch 5 around 7 records. So this is saying here how many batches should I need to execute. That means whatever the count I'm getting it, this is my count I'm getting it. Now you tell me this big chunk of the big record list, whatever we have, how can I divide it? So I'm telling here, divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So first execute this, then execute this, then execute this, then execute this, then rest of the records, whatever I have executed. Clear?
Yes, Swapna.
So now I'll try to execute this. I have created the object, and that object I'm giving into the database dot execute batch. So database dot execute batch is nothing but I'm invoking the batch here. I am invoking the batch. Now let's execute. Now. Now here you see the log, the batch is created, which is a 1.71 KB, which is 1.71 KB. Now, right, so here there are few serial batch, right? So, okay, debug, clear logs. Now, I do not have any logs here. Okay. Now, what I'll do is I'll try to execute it again. What is happening? It is executing it, right? The success thing is happened. Now here you see how many records it is, how many times it is getting executed. Serial batch apex range chunk handler, right? So serial batch apex range chunk handler. That means your batch is divided into multiple chunks, and these multiple chunks got executed. Now if you go to the setup, now if you search here, jobs, apex jobs, now I can see that the first batch I executed 2 times. One batch is executed, total batches is 8. It executed 8 batches. It executed 8 batches because 39 by 5. So around 8 batches it got executed. Now, how many processed? All of them are processed. There is nothing zero submitted by this person. Completion date, when it is started, it just took a minute. This is the starting time and this is a completion time. So it's like a seconds. And which Apex class? This is the Apex class, right? And this is my job ID. This is job ID. So where can I see the batch details once it is executed or not, or is it still running or not? I'm checking in the Apex job. Now let me go to the Apex Flex queue. Now let me go to the Apex Flex queue. Now, in the Apex Flex queue, what it is saying that monitor the status of Apex job in the Apex Flex queue and reorder them, control which jobs are processed first. Now, I cannot see the batch jobs here. I cannot see the batch jobs here. Nowhere it says that the batch. Nowhere it says batch. It is talking about the status of the Apex jobs in the Apex Flex queue. Okay, that is altogether different topic. But now, if you want to check a batch, what is the status of batch? This is the Apex job. Now, which object that these records get stored? these records are stored into the object called async apex job. Now, if I try to execute this, now I can see that it got executed multiple times. Now, these are the different things that got executed. Apex token, it is created one batch apex token, batch apex, and batch apex worker, and batch apex worker. So status is completed. Status is completed. Now, any questions on the batch? What are the steps? So we have done the 3 steps. Created the class, we created the methods, start method, execute method, finish method, and then we invoke the method. And then we invoke the method. Now, observe this. Now, I have given a debug log. I have given a debug log. So where my debug log is coming, it's not coming on the starting of the execution. This is the execution is started. I cannot see my debug log here. I cannot see here my debug log. Debug log, which I kept it in the finish method. Debug log, I kept it in the finish method. So while executing the execute method, I cannot find anything here. While executing the execute method, I cannot find anything. Where I can find my debug log, once my batch is success, all the records are processed perfectly fine. Then I'll go and I can check the last finish log. What are the finish log is there? There I can check the debug log, which says that this is the ID and job type is batch apex, status is completed. How many jobs processed? 8 jobs, and number of errors 0. Right? So from this log itself, I can identify the finish method gets executed once everything is, all the records are done with the execute method. Then it will hit the finish method. So when the finish method is hit, now I can see the job details. Now let's assume that instead of looking at the debug log, I wanted to send an email. Once all the records are updated, with this job details, I wanted to send an email to a person. Whoever is the person that needs the information about this. Like whenever the job gets executed, there is one person who will be monitoring it, who will be kind of knowing that whether the batch job is successful or not, is there any failure is happened or not. Instead of the person is going to the Apex job cross-verifying here, the person need kind of a email alert. Whenever the batch is completed, the client needs an email saying that every day, whenever it completes the batch, I need the details of the batch, how many batches are executed, is there any errors, number of errors, especially I'm interested about the number of errors. So he will say that with the number of errors and the total job items and how many job items processed, give me all these details once the batch is completed. So that means in the finish method, I need to send an email. So in order to send an email, we need to understand what is the emailing program. How can I send the email through the Apex? How can we send an email through the Apex? Now, in admin class, we have learned how to create an email template. For testing purpose, what we did is we clicked on a button on the email template. It says that send and merge test, right? So the button, we were clicking on that button and we were testing the email alert. Now, how can I do the same kind of a testing? That means I need to send an email. Usually what we will do, if I open from the Gmail or Outlook, wherever you go, what we will do is we will open the compose. We will click on a compose button here on the Gmail. There will be a compose button here. When I click on it, the draft email will be open. And here I'll be having a to address, CC address, and the subject will be there. And bottom, I can see the send button and the attachments, whatever is there, everything. Now here I'll write the body, I'll write the content here, then I'll click on a send button by mentioning the to address here. By mentioning the to address, by mentioning the subject, I'll send an email. So this is how we do it manually. This is how we do it in the manually. Even in Salesforce also manually, this is how we do it. Now, through the programming. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
So even in the Salesforce also, when you go to the Salesforce and if you open any object, there is a email. In the activities, you will see email. So when you click on an email, you need to manually enter the details here. So when you click on this email, so it will open up the one email where you have a from address, to address, BCC, subject, send, attachment, right? These all information you need to enter some content here, right? And then you have to click on a send button. This is what we are doing it manually. Now, through the Apex, how can we do it? Through the Apex, how can we do it? Through the Apex, how can we do it? Now let's see. So basically by using the email programming, whatever we are writing the email in the Apex, I can send one email or I can send multiple emails. I can send one email or multiple emails. Also, I can receive the emails from the external email IDs. We can send and receive the emails. I can do the sending as well as receiving. Both the logic I can write it using the Apex class. Now, while sending the emails, if I wanted to attach any emails, I can attach it. Right? So I can attach it, I can modify the subject, everything I can do it through the programming. And whatever we are doing it here in the programming, like Apex programming, whenever we are implementing, whenever we are writing a code related to the email program, whenever we are writing a code related to the email program, all the code is exist inside the messaging namespace. There is a namespace inside the Salesforce. So here outer I have a Salesforce. Inside the Salesforce, there is another namespace which is called as a messaging. We have a namespace called messaging. Whenever we are writing a email programming, all the logic, whatever we write a logic, whatever the Salesforce has provided, the ready-made classes, in order to implement the email program, all the ready-made classes sits inside the messaging. All the ready-made classes, methods, or whatever we are using, messaging dot. Whenever I say messaging dot, that means I'm going to the namespace. Whenever I say messaging dot, whatever I'm giving here could be a class name, right? Here I'm giving the class name. Whenever I say messaging dot, whatever the class name, there are different class names are there inside this namespace. That means I am going into the namespace called messaging, which is inside the Salesforce. Salesforce has a namespace called messaging. Inside that namespace, there are multiple classes which are implemented by the Salesforce. There are multiple classes which are implemented by the Salesforce. Now, Salesforce has given those ready-made classes to us in order to implement the email programming. Now let's go ahead and see what are those classes. So basically, there are two services provided by the email service. Email service, there are two services are provided by the email. One is outbound email service, another one is inbound email service. Outbound email service is nothing but the emails which are going outside of the Salesforce. That means I'm sending the email. Inbound is nothing but I'm receiving the email. Sending an email, receiving an email. So in the outbound email services, by using this feature, we can send emails to the required people or required users by using the two classes. There are two classes are there. One is messaging dot single email message class. Messaging dot single email message class. This is a namespace. This is a class. And the second one is messaging dot mass email message. Another class within the namespace is mass email message. Two classes we have inside the namespace. Right now, for the outbound messages, we are using the two classes. One is a single email message class. Another one is mass email message class that sits inside the messaging namespace. That sits inside the messaging namespace. For the outbound email services, the one which we are sending to the people, if I wanted to send an email, then we have to use either of these two. If it is an inbound email service, if it is inbound email service, that means by using this feature, we can receive the email notification from the external email IDs. For example, if I'm working in our organization, so based on our company, we have a credentials. Whoever is sending outside of my company, okay, external email IDs with the help of, so whenever they are sending the email with the help of interface, there is an interface in the messaging called inbound email handler interface. Using this, we can receive the emails. Now let's say that you have a scenario. The scenario is whenever we are receiving a records from third-party system. Okay, whenever we are receiving a records from third-party system, or let's take the bank. Okay, so in the bank, I have raised a case. When I raised a case, ultimately I'll give my own email ID, my personal email ID, right? Which is my personal email ID. Personal email ID. In case if bank wants to send an email to us, okay? In case if bank wants to send an email to the customer, then bank is using the Salesforce they are using the Salesforce. If they wanted to send an email to customer, here they will be using the either of one class, either single email message or mass email message. By using this messaging.single email message or messaging.mass email message, by using this, they will implement. In case if the if the customer is responded to this email, okay, customer is responded to this email. In order to receive the emails from the customer to the bank, what we will do is we will use the interface which is called as a inbound email handler. Inbound email handler. From the customer, if I wanted to receive an email and that I wanted to store it into the Salesforce, because bank is using the Salesforce. In order to save that, I'll be using the inbound email handler. Inbound email handler. So that means inside the messaging namespace, now I have two classes, single email message, and another one is mass email message. This is for the inbound. This is for the outbound emails. For the inbound, we have an interface called inbound email handler. Now we'll look at the outbound email service. Inside the outbound email service, the first one is called as a single email message. Single email message. The first one we will see messaging.single email message. Now, single email is nothing but sending in a single email, like opening up this email and sending the information. No, by using the single email message, you can send multiple users also. Single email message is nothing but it's not that single email message is not about I can send only one user. No, you can send one user or you can send many users. It is possible. More users also it is possible. Right? You can send more users also it is possible. Now, using this, we can send one user or a multiple users, you can send it. But when I'm using this class, now I know this template is UI template. This template is whatever you can see here, it is UI template. But how can I implement similar type of a kind of a to address, CC address, BCC address, subject, send, attachment? How can I implement it? In order to implement it inside this class, we have a certain methods. Inside this class, we have a certain methods. The methods are, for example, if you wanted to implement a to address, then you have to use a method called set to address. If you wanted to build a CC address, you need to use set.cc address. If you want a BCC address, then you have to use set BCC address. If it is a subject, then you have to use set subject. To address, set to address, CCC, set CCC address, BCC, set BCC address, subject, set subject. And the next one is we have a body here. What is the content that I'm going to place it? There are multiple ways you can place the content. One way is by calling the method called set plain text body. That means you are not adding any images, styling, break, or nothing you are not adding. Just a plain text you are adding here. In case if you have it, just a plain text, use the method set plain text body. In case if you wanted to put a HTML tags like a break tag, or if you wanted to add bold tag, right? So if you wanted to place any of the HTML tag, then you have to use the method called set HTML body. Set HTML body. Now we are done with the to address, CCC address, BCC, subject, plain text, HTML body. Now, next one is an attachment. In case if I wanted to attach any PDF file to the email. So usually whenever we receive an email from the bank, like a credit card bill, like every starting of the month, we will receive a email from the bank saying that this is what your credit card amount you have to pay, right? So they will be attaching some document inside the email. Like that, if I wanted to attach an email, then how can I do it? You have to use the set file attachment. Set file attachment. Now, all these are things, whatever we are talking about the methods, set to address, CCC address, set BCC, set subject, set plain text body, set HTML body, set file attachment. All these methods are sitting inside the single email message class. All of these are sitting inside the single email message class. That means what you have to do, first you need to create an object for this. Like whenever we wanted to update a account record, what we will do, I'll first create an object for this ACC new account. Then what I'll do, I'll update it ACC dot rating equal to, like this I'll do, right? Similarly, if you wanted to assign the values to these methods or say, pass the parameters to in this method, what you have to do, you have to create an object for single email message. That means messaging dot single email message, and then you need to create an object for this. Single email equal to new. Like this, you need to create an object. Like this, you need to create an object. Then what you can do is, now you can use the email dot set to address, right? So inside to address, you can pass the details. Whatever the to address is there, you can pass it inside it. Right? If you want to set CC address, you can do that. Similarly, BCC address, subject, everything you need to use the object name dot set to address and set BCC address and set the subject, set plain text body and set HTML body. Like this, you need to set the details in order to build the email. Now what we are doing here, by using this, I'm building an email template. By using all these methods, I'm building this template, right? I'm building this template. Now, who needs to click on a send button? I'm building the template by adding here some to address. Like I'm adding the to address here. samskarait@gmail.com. I'm adding the to address and I'm adding some subject here and the body, I'm adding some details here. And I'm attaching something here, and who needs to click on a send button? Send button needs to be clicked by the, inside the messaging namespace, we have a send email class. We have a send email class. Inside the messaging namespace, we have a send email class. So by using this class, I'll be triggering this send button. That means by using the Salesforce code, by using the Apex code, I'm clicking on this send button. I'm clicking on this send button. Now, let's see. Messaging.single email message class. By using this class, we can send the email notification to one or more users with the required subject and content and attachment to the users. And while sending the email to the people, we can pass the required input to the email by using the various instance of methods. Like syntax, you need to create an object for this messaging.single image. Then you need to specify the object name, initialization, example, messaging.single image, single email message, email equal to new messaging.single email message. Now, there are different methods like I have discussed. The first one is a set to address. Inside the set to address, it is expecting the parameter, which is the array or list. Set to address expecting the parameter as list or array. That means by using this method, this is used to add a collection of email IDs to get added into the to address. That means who all do I need to send it? Like if you have a one user to address, like one email is there in the to address, or if you have a multiple email addresses, you can mention multiple email addresses also, because this is expected the test list array is expecting. So you can send multiple to address. You can specify multiple to address here. So example, you need to build a list first, set string to address equal to new string of, like for example, here I'm setting the samskarait@gmail.com. And also I'm setting the ramgopal@gmail.com and jyoti@gmail.com. That means here I have in the two address, 3 email addresses are there. 3 are there. So finally, this whatever this list is there to address, I'm setting inside the email dot set to address. So that is how I'll set the to address. Step 2, in case if you wanted to define the CC address also expecting the list. So this is also collection of list, collection of CC address, CC email address. That means you need to build a string, list of the string, CC address. Here I'm adding the bharati@gmail.com and akash@gmail.com. And this list I'm setting into the email dot set CC address, and this CC address I'm setting. Similarly, if you have a BCC address, you can specify the BCC address, different emails. So that means you need to build a list. While building the list, pass the different email address. Right now I have passed the sipita@gmail.com, srinivas@gmail.com. And in order to set this, we have to use email dot set BCC address and pass this list here. That's all about the to address, CC address, BCC address. Next one. So while sending the email notification, we can add maximum of 150 email address. That means it's not a single to address or CC address or BCC address. It's a combination of two address, CC address, BCC address. Let's say that, for example, you are adding a to address 50, right? So CC address 50 and BCC address 50. So total, it will be 150 like that. So total, you can include 150 email address. This is via Apex. Whenever you are building from the Apex, you can add 150 email address. Now the next one, we have a set subject. Subject is expecting the parameter of string. Now this method is used to specify the email subject. That means example, you can directly set email dot set subject. You can add whatever the subject you wanted to display there. Set reply to. Okay, set reply to is basically, for example, I have received an email. I have received an email. When I received an email, if I click on a reply to. So let's assume that I have received this email. Okay. Now, whenever I click on a reply to, what will happen? Automatically, the to address is coming for me. So similarly, in Salesforce also, if you want, if in case if client click on, client has received an email. If client click on a reply button, so when they click on a reply to, what is the email ID that we wanted to populate automatically? So this method is used to specify the reply to email address upon clicking on the reply button. So email dot set reply to, let's say support@dell.com. And the next one is a step 6. Set sender display name. Sender display name is nothing but, if you remember the long back in the Gmail, what we used to get here is like this. support@gmail.com. All the email IDs we were able to see. Previously, we were seeing all the email IDs here. Instead of a text like a Zoom and a Google Forms, instead of this, we used to see all the emails here in the Gmail that was long back. Right now, what they have come up with that is, instead of showing here the email address, because email address does not help what kind of information is here. Instead of showing us the email address, they are showing us some kind of a text, which is highlighted text. Like from this, I can know that, okay, from where the email has been received. So they are showing me the text. Instead of email, they are showing me the text. So similarly, in Salesforce also, if you wanted to display the name instead of email, what is the name that should be displayed on the inbox? So for that, we use a set sender display name. So this method is used to specify the senders of display name in the email. So example, email dot set sender display name ICICI Bank credit cards. And the next one is a set plain text body, the content that you wanted to pass it. By using this method, we can add a plain text email content. So like this, so whatever the plain text is there, you can add it. Email dot set plain text body, you can pass the plain text information here. Similarly, we have a set HTML body. This is also used to add the HTML email content. That means you are going to use the HTML tags inside the content. Example, email.set HTML body, and you are passing here along with the HTML codes, you have to pass the content here. And the step 9, set file attachments. For the file attachments, it is expecting the parameter list of message.email file attachment. Email file attachment. Now here, if you observe, before we were discussing the namespace, that is messaging. That is messaging. That namespace is messaging. But here you see another namespace which is called as a message. File attachments sits inside the namespace called message. And inside this message, we have a class called email file attachment. Email file attachments. So set file attachments are expecting the email file attachment that are in the namespace called message. So example, email dot set file attachments, you need to pass all the list of email, what are the attachments are there. You need to pass the list of email attachments. These are the different methods we use usually in real time. There are few more methods. But these are the maximum that we use it in the real time.
Swapna?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the attachment, how do we specify the file with the actual path we give to the file?
Yes, we have to build the file. I'll show you how to build the file. Then we can pass the file. Now, once we are done building the everything, like I have given the to address, the subject, content, attachment, everything I am done. Now, through the Apex code, I'm clicking on a send button. Through the Apex code, I'm clicking on send button. So once the email is ready with the required input details, then we can send the email notification to the users by using the send email method. Send email method is inside the messaging namespace. So messaging dot send email. Now you need to pass the single email message. Whatever we have implemented by giving all the required input inside this object, single email message, that list you need to pass it here. Send email, always expect the list of the emails. That means why it is expecting the list of emails. That means you can send by using the single email message, you can send for one user, you can send an email, or multiple users also you can send an email. So that's the reason it is expecting the list of emails so that you can send emails to the multiple users. You can write it like this, or else messaging.send email. What you can do is you can initialize directly here. What is the difference these two is basically list of message dot single email message, you are declaring it outside. So that means you need to create a first object. You need to create a first object. List of messaging dot single email message. Single email message, then create this list of emails equal to new. So initialize it here. Initialize it here and then pass this list of emails to the messaging dot send email. So you are passing it here. That means you are writing in 2 lines. One, you are declaring it object. If you do not want to declare the object or initialize the object, then what you can do is directly you can initialize the object here. Directly you can initialize the object here and pass the email. Whatever the emails are there, you can pass it. So similar like in case once you are done with this, like once you clicked on the send button, you have implemented. Now you wanted to store that record inside like once you click on a send button through the Apex, you wanted to know what is the outcome of the send button, whether it is successfully sent or not. Whether it is successfully sent an email or not. How can you know it? You have to store that into the class called, we have a message dot send email result. Message dot send email result. If you store that result inside the send email result, you can know that by looping through the email result, you know that how many emails are successful or not. Is there any error? You can track it. So this is send email result is basically to track it. Similarly for this also message dot send email result. Message dot send email result. You can store and you can track what is happened to the emails. Now, any questions on this, whatever we have discussed? Let's see the use case so that you can understand. Let's assume that we have a lead records. What I'm doing is I'm creating the 3 lead records. Creating a 3 lead records. After creating these 3 lead records, I wanted to send an email notification to all the 3 lead records with the required subject and content. Each lead has a different email ID, different city are there. Each email ID has, assume that different email address. Different email address is there. Can any one of you give me email IDs? 2 email IDs I need. Okay, so each lead record has a 3 different email address. So whenever I insert each one of them, I wanted to send an email to that person. I wanted to send an email to that person so that that person will know that, okay, within the system, the lead has been created. And while sending this, what I'll do is I'll attach a PDF file. I'll attach a PDF file. So whenever you receive an email from the bank, usually how you receive the PDF, you will have a first name and the last name. Some kind of this, right? You will have a first name and the last name. Assume that Swapna and last name is Onugandi. So like this, you will be .pdf. So like this, you will receive a PDF. Like this, you will receive a PDF. So same thing, I'll be implementing a file to, and then I'll be attaching that file, PDF file to the email and will be sending an email. Will be sending an email. Can you guys give me 2 email address? Okay. So one more, please. So let's assume that, let's take a scenario. Now I have a ICICI Bank. Now let's suppose I have a ICICI Bank. So this is ICICI Bank. Now, assume that assume that there are 3 customers for the ICICI Bank. 3 customers are there. Assume that one is there are 3 customers for the ICICI Bank. Now, first customer is Swapna, and then we have a Bhagya, and then we have a Bharati. Right? So there are 3 customers are here. Everybody has their own account ID. They have their own account ID. Swapna has a different account ID, Bhagya has a different account ID, and Bharati has a different account ID. So all 3 of them are using the credit cards. All 3 of them are using the credit cards. Assume that on today is 30th March. Okay, usually we receive an email from bank. We receive an email from the bank on the 1st or the 31st of the last month or a starting of the month. We will receive an email from bank saying that this is about your credit card bill. You have to pay on or before this date. On or before this date. So like this, all 3 of us received an email. All 3 of us received an email. When it is received an email, we received an email like a Swapna.pdf. When we received it, there is an attachment within this. When Bhagya received it, Bhagya dot, there is a PDF within the email. And like Bharati also received an email with a PDF. That means in each email, there is a PDF is attached. PDF is attached in the each email. Now, the same exactly. Now, what I'm going to do is for all these 3 leads, I'm going to create a 3 users. I'm going to create a lead. So lead 1, lead 2, lead 3. And for each lead, I'll be sending an email to their email address. That means when I'm creating the first lead, I have a different email address. When I'm creating the lead 2, I have a different email address. When I'm creating the lead 3, I have a different email address. So that means I need to create a lead separately from the Apex. Usually what we used to do is for integer counter equal to 1, and then I used to specify counter less than or equal to 3, and then we used to say counter plus plus. And within this, we used to create all the leads. That means if I wanted to create all 3 leads, everything we used to write it here. But in this case, the emails are different and the names are different. So I cannot create within the for loop, because when I'm creating the first lead person name is Swapna. When I'm creating and the email address is also different. When I'm creating the second lead, the person name is Bhagya and the email address is different. And third time when I'm creating the lead, the first name and the last name is different. So this time I'll not be using the for loop because I have a different values that I need to assign it. So what I'll do is I'll create a leads without for loop. I'll be creating the leads. And now let's go ahead. Let's open developer console. Now let's create a new program, new Apex class, messaging helper. So this time we are creating the 3 leads and sending an email to those 3 leads. Now I'll be creating a method here, public static, no return type. So I'm using the void. And let's say method name is create lead record. Create lead records. So what I'll be using is, I'll not be using the lead for loop here. Directly, I'm going ahead with the initializing the lead. New lead. So ld dot first name equal to, let's say, Swapna. Ld dot last name equal to phone ganti. Similarly, we have a ld dot email. So I'll say Samskara IT @gmail.com. This is my email ID. And also I have a few more details here in Salesforce. Let's go here. Lead, whenever we are creating the lead, what are the data which is mandatory? Let's click on a new lead. Okay, so last name is mandatory, company. Okay, now let's go to the developer console. Let's give ld dot rating equal to hot and ld dot industry. Let's give it as a technology. ld dot company, company is mandatory. Let's say Salesforce 1. ld dot, what else we have? Annual revenue. So I'm giving some amount here. ld dot, let's say phone equal to phone number is this. ld dot city equal to Hyderabad. ld dot state equal to Telangana. ld dot country equal to India. And ld dot postal code, let's say 50038. This is one lead. Now I'll be adding this lead to the list. So I need a list of lead list equal to new list of lead. Now the first lead I'll add into here dot add ld. Similarly, I need to create another lead here. This is the second lead. This is the second lead. For the second lead, Bhagya. Okay, last name, and then I have an email ID. Okay, assume that phone number different. And let's take a different postal code. This is the second one, second lead. And similarly, I'll be creating the third lead. Right, so I'll be creating the third lead. This is lead 3. First name is Bharati. Last name and then email address. I have a different email address. And let's change the postal code. Fine. Phone number is a different phone number. And lead 3. Now, I have created a first lead, second lead, and third lead. Let's save this. All of them I have added into the list. What is the wrong? Is there anything wrong here? Yeah. So I need to add single quote. No, it should be all good. Perfect. So I have created a 3 leads. First lead, second lead, and third lead. All of them I have placed into the list of leads. All of them I have placed into the list of leads. Now what I'll do is outside of this, now here we do not have for loop. So what I'll do is if list of lead is not empty, if it is not empty, database dot insert here I'll be passing the list of leads, comma, false. Done. This is usual normal one in order to create a lead. This is to create a lead. Now next method, I'll be creating another method that is for sending the email. Public static void and send email notification. Send email notification. Now for this, I need to pass a list of lead records here. That means I need a parameter here, list of leads. List of leads. Now, what I'll do is once it is done, then I'll call this method from here. I'll call the method send email notification method. After inserting the lead record, I'll call the details and I'll pass the list of lead. What I'm doing, I'm calling the second method inside the first method. Now let's go ahead. Let's implement the email notification here. First, I'll check what is whether I have a data or not. If dot is empty. If the data is there, then what I'll do is, first thing, I need to create a object. Which object I need to create? I need to create a single email. I need to create single email message object. I need to create it. That means I need to initialize the single email message. Then what I need to do? I need to loop through the each record. Loop through the each record. Loop through the each record. Now let's loop through this each record. So in order to do that, per loop, and we have a object here lead, and the list of leads. Now I'm looping through it. Now within this, what I'll do is, now I'll start preparing my email. Prepare email notification content. I'll start preparing my email content here. Now what I'll do is messaging dot single email message, and then I'll give a name to it, email equal to new messaging dot single email message. Done. Initialization is done. Now, what are the methods that we have inside the single email message? What are the methods that we have?
Set
Set,
to-
set
from
Set
set
address, and then we have a email dot
set CC.
set CC, BCC. We do not have a CC, BCC email. So that is the optional. It is not mandatory. In case if you wanted to use the BCC, CC, you can use it. That's not an issue. So here it's same like how we are defining the two address, BCC, CC address also same. Now, next thing what I'll do is when user click on a reply button, I need a by default reply to the email should be coming. This is one method. And what else I need? I need subject. I need to set the subject. Set subject. And also I need, what is the display name? Email dot set sender display name. To address reply to send. Sender display name set subject. And then I need a email content, email dot set HTML body. I'll use the HTML code here. Now set to address, set reply to, set sender display, set subject, and then set HTML body. Right. So what else I need? I need the email attachment, email dot file attachment. It should be set file attachment, not just a file attachment. Dot set file attachments. Now, these are the methods. Usually we use it in the real time. These are the methods we use it during the real time. You can use BCC, CC also, no problem. In the real time, we use a CCC address. CC address, why we use it? In order to copy the org. Like we wanted to give some general email ID there. So every organization, every Salesforce organization has some common email ID, which is called as the org email ID. So in order to specify the org email ID, we use a set CC address also. But right now we do not need it. Now, set to address. I need to pass the to address details here. I need to pass the to address details. Now, in order to pass the to address details, what I'll do is I'll build a list here, which is a to address list. Now here I'll specify. I have everybody's email ID is there in this lead. Everybody's email ID is there in this lead. So instead of specifying, instead of hard coding the email ID, what I'll do is I'll use the LD dot email. So that because we are inside, we are in loop, this LD, whatever is there, let's take it as a LD record. So whatever this lead record is there, so this lead record, from the each record, I'm capturing the email and passing it to set to address. Now this to address, I'll pass the parameter here. I'm done with the set to address. Set reply to address. Let's say that whenever they click on a reply, let's give it here support at the rate ICICIbank.com. Whenever user click on a reply, should go to the support. That is done. And the next one is a sender display name. What is the name that should be displayed on the inbox? So it should display ICICI Bank credit card. Credit card. This is the name that should be displayed. Fine, this is done. Next one is a subject. I need to build a subject here. Okay. Subject, I'll use a string here. I'll use a separate string in order to build the subject. Let's say that string email subject equal to, I'll say congratulations. Okay, so plus what I'll do is I'll specify the first name. In the subject, it should specify dot first name. Then I'll specify LD record dot last name. Dot last name. And then here, I'll say that this is, we are talking about the credit card details. So your credit card statement is attached. Or let's say your credit card statement is generated. Fine, this is my subject. Now what I'll do is I'll add this email subject into the set subject. Set subject. Now my email subject is done. Next one is HTML body. Now here what I'll do is I'll implement another string here for the email body or email content equal to. So email content should be similar to how the actual emails looks like. Like it says that dear first name, last name, and it will tell that, okay, this is the credit card statement for the month, or right. So similar way, I'm going to implement the information, the content, the pure content, how it will be there in the real time, because this is how we will be doing in the real time. So email content, whenever we are building it, we always use the HTML tags in the email content, and we use the set HTML body here. So I'll say that dear, and I'll specify lead record dot lead first name and the last name and the last name. Then we have a breakpoint. I'm adding the HTML tags here. The tags has to be in the single quote. The tags has to be in the single quote. Now, for example, you have a long text. You have a very long text. Instead of writing a very long text like this, you can divide your text. How can you divide it? You have to put a plus button there. If you put a plus button and you can continue from the next line. Whatever your text is there, you can continue from the next line. So let's say that we are pleased to inform that your credit card statement for the month of March 2023. For the March 2023 has been generated. Now what I'm doing here, my text is keep on going like this. My text is keep on going. Right, and I have a few more details I wanted to enter. I have a few more details. As I'm entering the details, it will keep on move my cursor. It's a very long text, right? So what I'll do is I'll put a plus button and I'll hit enter. I'll hit enter and I can continue my text from next line onwards. So plus is nothing but concatenation here, concatenation. So let's say here are customer details. Why I'm putting the breakpoint inside the single comment? If I put it outside here, Apex class does not accept that. Apex class does not accept that. So what Salesforce does is Salesforce take this entire content and they will convert into the HTML and they will show the output. So let's say lead record ID. Now I wanted to place the lead record ID here. So lead dot ID. Similarly, similar way we have a break here and then lead person name, lead person name. Now I need LD record dot person name is first name and the last name, first name and the last name. And again the breakpoint. And here I'll show the lead rating. LD record dot rating plus and lead industry LD record dot industry and what else we have? We have a annual revenue, lead annual revenue. LD record dot annual revenue. Now, contact number. Are we inserting the contact number? Yes. Contact number. LD record dot phone. And then we have a lead email. LD record dot email. And we have a company. LD record dot company. And then we have a city, state, country, postal code. So that everything I'll put it into the single line. So which is a lead mailing address. Lead mailing address, I'll place everything into the single line. LD record dot city. LD record dot country. LD record dot state. LD record dot postal code. Now, I have all the information, mailing address, everything is available here. Now, finally, I'll specify two breaks, I'll put it. Now, let's say that please go through the attached credit card statement and make the payment. Let's say that today is 30th. So I'll say that make the payment on or before. So that means I'm giving a time to the customer system dot today. From today, add days of, let's say, 15 days. So from today, next 15 days, you have to pay the amount. You have to pay the amount. So that's what I'm mentioning in the system.today, adding the days and then formatting it so that it will display in the proper format. Now, finally, I'll say that this is a, let me add break. This is system generated email. Okay, and then I'll add two more breaks here. And finally, thank you. Break. Team is credit card department. Break and ICICI Bank. This is my email content. This is my email content. Perfect. So this is my email content. Right now, what I'll do is this email content, whatever we have built it here, So the same email content, I'll take that and I'll place it into the HTML body.
Swapna, line number 79, you have to give plus record ID.
Okay. So I'm placing into the email content. Now, next step is I need to build the attachment. Now, next one is prepare attachment. So far, we have built the email notification. Now, inside the email notification, it is expecting the file attachment. It is expecting the file attachment. Now, I need to prepare the file attachment. How it is expecting? It is expecting in the form of messaging dot email file attachment. So I'll copy this messaging dot file email file attachment. I'll say attach equal to new messaging dot email file attachment. I'll say attach dot. We have a different methods inside this. First, I'll specify what is my file name. Name of the file. So name of the file I wanted in the form of first name and the last name. I need in the form of first name and last name, and then it has to add PDF. Then it has to add the PDF. That means I'm saying that file name should be the first name dot swapna, comma, Konaganti dot PDF. Then I should specify here attach set content type. Set content type. Which type of a content it is? This is application / PDF. Now, content type is basically, it is a kind of, it is going to give the information to this class. What is the format of this attachment? What is the format of this attachment? That means which attachment should be implemented. So if you say PDF, then it will understand that, okay, this has to be implemented. Whatever inside the file, I'm going to provide the content. Okay, that content has to be generated as PDF. There are different values will be there. For example, if you wanted to insert an image, then you have to use the content type image / PNG or JPG or GIF. If you want to anything, if you wanted to use it. In case if you wanted to attach a plain text, some text file you wanted to attach. So in that case, you use the text / let's say HTML, or if it is not HTML plain, then use the plain. Or if you wanted to attach a video, you can say video / MP4, whatever the format it is. So this content type has a different thickness values, which will tell the file attachment, which will tell the email file attachment, which type of document that needs to be added into the, like how it should be generated finally, how it should be generated. That means Salesforce is going to look at this, understand, okay, so whatever they have implemented here, the file has to be generated in the form of PDF, in the form of PDF. Now, finally, what I'll do is I'll add the body dot body equal to, I need to pass the details here. That means whenever we have a attachment, if I open an attachment, this is the form. Inside this form, I'll be having some text here, right? So far what I'm saying, this is .pdf. That's what I have mentioned here. The format is, this is a .pdf. But what is the content needs to be there inside this PDF, I have not yet set. I'm going to set right now, which is attach.body is going to tell what is the content that needs to be displayed here inside the PDF. Now, I wanted to display the content, whatever we have implemented here, the same content I wanted to pass it. The same content I wanted to pass it. Now, this content is in the HTML format. This content is HTML format, but attachment does not accept the HTML format directly. It does not accept the HTML format directly. So whenever you are passing the content like this, you have to first convert that into the binary. First, convert that into the binary. So in order to convert that into the binary, you need to specify blob dot, which are the format you want to PDF. To PDF. You have a different options there. You have a different options there. So size, if you wanted to get a size of that file, or if you wanted to, it's a PDF or it's a string or it is a value of. Right now, we are just going with the PDF one. So that means what it does is, what are the data here it is there. First, it will convert into the binary format, and then it will give this information to the email file attachment, and it will take the binary format of the data and it will look at this, what is the set content type, and based on that combination of these two, it is going to generate the PDF file. Within that, the content is going to be placed here. Fine. So here I'm attaching the body here. Now I'm done with all my steps. Attach file name I have given, what is the content type I have given, and what should be the content I have given. Now finally I need to add here the pass the parameter. Now in order to pass the parameter, it is expecting the list. So what I'll do is, so far we have implemented a single object. Now I'll implement the email list equal to new list of email. Now inside this email list, add all the attachments. Add all the attachments. Now go ahead and pass these details here. Go ahead and pass these details here. That's it. Preparing the email notification, single email message, created an object. For this object, I have passed all the details here. Then for the file attachment, I have prepared the attachment here and I have passed the attachment here. Now finally, what I need to do is, I need to send email result. I need to send the email.
Ma'am, email list dot add 102, line number 102.
Yeah, so this is a list attachment. So for this list attachments, what I'm doing is I'm attaching this. Now finally this list attachment I'm placing here. Preparing the email is done. Preparing the email is done. Now the next thing which I need to do is, I need to do the messaging dot send email. Send email is expecting the list of emails. Send email is expecting the list of the emails. Now that list of emails, so far I have a single email. So far I have a single email. I do not have a list of emails here. This is a single email. Now I need a list of emails. So what I'll do is, I'll add the list of emails here. And email list. Now, inside this email list, I'll add all the emails. Anybody has any question till this point? Here I'm doing single email, pushing to the list of emails. Now I'll cross check if my email list is not equal to null or is it empty. If not email list dot is empty, then what I'll do is messaging dot send email, and I'll pass these details here. Now I'm clicking on the send button. When I click on the send button, I wanted to store the result into messaging dot send email result. Send email result. I'm storing that all the email result inside the send email result. Done. Now let's go ahead and test this. So I'm creating the lead, passing the lead list. This is the list. And looping to the lead. Single email message. For this email message, I'm adding the address, reply to, sender, display, subject, content, HTML body. Then I'm preparing the attachment, and this attachment I'm adding into the list of attachment. And this list of attachment, I'm passing it to the set file attachment. And finally, I'm adding all the emails to this result. Perfect. Okay. Now let's go ahead and run this. Debug, open. Dot create lead record. I'm just executing only one method because this method is calling the another method here. Now I'll click on execute. Okay, lead has been created. Okay, I have received an email. The first one is for, this is for Swapna Konuganti, right? So this is my record ID, rating, industry. Now this is dear Swapna Konuganti, and there is an attachment here. There is an attachment, and it is giving all the information here. Please go through the attachment before. This is the date. From today, we have added the 15 days. So it is coming in month, MMDD, YYY. This is system generated email. Thank you. And here is the PDF. Inside the PDF, what is the content that we have added? Same content we have added. Same content we have added.
Swapna, if I want to put some table or something, I have to draft like a HTML, same how you have added break HTML text.
Yeah.
Similar way I have to do, correct?
Yes, yes. So if you wanted to add a table, then here you need to use the HTML table, TR, rows, TD, column, everything you have to put your HTMLs here. So same data, what you can do is you can put it into the table also. You just need to add a HTML tags. For the HTML tags, we have a table tag, right? Rows, headers, cells, same thing which you have to put it. Similarly, Bharati and Bhagya might have received an email. So I have a copy of that. Okay, I have received 3 times. Okay. Bharati, have you received email? Bharati, Bhagya.
I'm checking.
Yes, Swapna.
Okay. So this is how we prepare the emails. This is how we prepare the email. Now quickly, in batch class, in the finish method, if I wanted to send an email, how can I send it in the finish method? Same format you have to implement. Same format you have to implement in the finish method. That means you need to write a messaging.single image, set these all email subject, thank you, and what are the details are there. You can specify those details and you need not to attach anything. You need not to attach anything if you do not want, because this batch class has a certain information which you wanted to inform, like you wanted to tell job processed item, total job items, number of items. So in this case, attachment is not required. Only thing you have to do is just you need to build a single email message. Single email message. Will you guys able to do that? Yes or no? You guys able to do that?
Yes, Swapna.
Okay. How about others?
Myself.
Yes.
Okay, so you do not need a prepare attachment here in the batch class. What you need to do is same you have to implement. Okay, so here in this case, the to address, you can specify hard-coded value. In case, for example, for your name or your email address, you can specify here. To address, you can specify your email address. Okay, so for example, in my case, like I wanted to give it as a Samskar ID @gmail.com. Or else we have a something here in the asynchronous. We have a created by. There is a created by dot email. Whoever is the batch created, if that person has to receive an email, so give that person name also, which is ultimately your email ID, right? So you can give that also. So whatever the job details are there, that job details dot created by dot email, so that whoever is hard coded, that person will receive, as well as whoever is created the job, bad job, they will also receive this. They will also receive it. And you can pass the to address here, set reply to, this is the same, send display name. So you can give here bad job instead of ICICI Bank. So you can say here batch job, right? So, and email subject you can directly mention here. Email subject will be, let's say that weekly batch job support. And the email content, you will not have a lead records here. So what you have to say is you need to get the information here. Let's say, for example, email content is, I do not have here any lead records. So I'll simply say that, dear technical team. And what I'll do is inform you that the batch job has been completed. Batch job is completed. Now the details, you can give the details like a batch job name. So how you are going to get the batch job name? Basically, you can get it from here. So you can say here, for example, you need a job ID instead of lead record ID, you need a job details here. So what you can do, job details.id. Similarly, batch name or job status. Job status, you can get it from job details.status. Right, so the total number of batches available. So that you can get it from job details dot total job items. Similarly, if you wanted to know any error, like the person has to know the error, in that case, job details dot, you can specify number of errors, how many errors are there, right? So if there are any failed one, so there are failed batch jobs. In case if there are any failed jobs, that is the same thing, number of here, that means error or failed, either of this. That's it. So this all is not required. And if you want to specify when the job has been executed, you can say system.today. System.today.format, you can give the format. Let's say here, instead of this, job completed on this. Thank you. And this is the, let's say, Salesforce. Done. Your content is done. Now you have an email content. Right, so I need a list of it. List of messaging dot single email message. List of messaging dot single email message. So the name of the list is email list. Right, so that's it. Once you get the email, once you execute this batch class, what will happen is you will receive an email. You will receive an email. Weekly batch job support, looks safe, and these are the details. Total number of batches available, 8. Job status is completed. Job record ID, error failed 0. Job completed on 3/30th today, and this is system generated Salesforce. Right, so this is how we implement the emails. Now, limits on the email program is either through the API, that means if you are using the integration, through the integration, if you are sending any emails, or Apex, you are writing in Apex class, you can send single emails to maximum of 5,000 external email address per day based on the GMT. Now, in case if you do not want to hit this, like if you have a more than 5,000, there are alternate ways in order to handle this. In case if you have a more than 5,000 emails. So what you can do is there is another method called set target ID. Set target ID. So in this target ID, you need to pass the ID. The ID of either could be a lead, could be a user, could be a contact, could be a account, any of this. So if you like email dot set target. So for example, if I go to the my or let's say now here in the batch class, what I'll do is here email dot set target object ID. So set target object ID. If you specify set target object ID, if you specify any of the lead ID or user ID, or it is a contact ID or account ID, what it will think is system, basically you are sending an email to the internal users. You are sending an email to the internal users. So it will not count it. Actually, it will not count. So this, what are the limit is there? This is for the external emails. Okay, so in case if you are sending an email to the external members, so what you can do is you can specify that email dot set target object ID. So what will happen here is when you specify the set target object ID, okay, this is optional, but if you specify it, what will happen is you have to specify either contact, lead, or a user. That means whenever you specify, it will think as you are sending an email to the internal users. You are sending an email to the internal users. That's how it will think. So in order to make the system confused, what we can do is email.set target object ID, if you mention the lead ID or a user ID or contact ID, any of this you can mention. So that is a one way. Or another way is, if you have so many external email IDs, what you can do is in the to address, put the internal user email. In to address, internal email ID, and CC, place the external email ID. In CC, external email ID. This is also to confuse the system. So whenever it says the to address is internal email ID, it will think that emails are sent to internal, but it also goes to the external emails. So there is no way we can, there is a alternate ways are that these two are the ways to make the system to confuse, not to hit the governor limits. This is the alternate way which you can do it. Okay, so the homework for the email program, write an Apex program to create a 3 hiring manager records inside the object and send the email notification to all 3 hiring manager records with the required subject and the content. So whatever I have done right now, you have to do the same thing with the hiring manager. And attach the PDF while sending an email. So that PDF content, whatever you want, you are mentioning in the email body, the same content mentioned into the PDF body also. Homework on the batch class, write in a batch class to update the candidate records and send an email in the finish method. You need to send an email. Once all the candidate records are updated, send final email to the person, whoever is generated the batch, or you can give any email ID. The second one is write a batch class to do the hard delete of a last opportunity. So there is an opportunity stage equal to close lost. If you go to the record, if you go to the Salesforce, in the Salesforce, we have a opportunity record. Inside the opportunity, there is a field called stage. So that stage has different pick list values. Stage has different pick list values. So whenever the opportunity stage equal to, whenever the opportunity stage equal to close lost, we have a close lost. Delete all those records. When you are deleting it, make sure delete it from the recycle bin also. Do the hard delete of lost opportunity records and send an email to the person. These are the two homework for the batch class. Garner limits for the batch class. As we know that start method is of the batch class can run at a time. One time it can run in the organization. And batch jobs are usually have the limit of 5 queued or active jobs simultaneously. That means if you have a multiple jobs that are scheduled at the same time, okay, so there is a limit from the Salesforce side. At a time, it can queue or it can simultaneously execute the jobs of 5 jobs. It cannot execute more than that. So when the 5 jobs are executed at the same time, your system will go down. Definitely the performance will be down. But you have to make sure that at a time, same time, do not schedule any multiple batches. But there is it is possible you can do it, but it's not a best practice to schedule at the same time. And in case if you have a more jobs, more than this, for example, there are 20 jobs you have scheduled it at the same time. So what will happen is they all will be sitting in the holding status. It will not execute it. They all will be sitting in the holding status because only 5 jobs can be executed. If there are more jobs are there, which you have scheduled at the same time, what will happen is those jobs goes into the holding status. You cannot find those jobs running there. Once these all are completed, then only it will pick up the next one. And holding status, how many jobs can be sit in the holding? 100 batch jobs can be sit in the holding status. So that holding batches you can see in the Apex Flex queue. And we know that 50 million records can be returned by the database.query locator. And this is the very important interview question. They will ask how many callouts can be done through the batch class. If I say 10 callouts done through the batch class, callout is nothing but hitting the external system, hitting the external system. So callout is nothing but making the call to the external web service. That means you are hitting the external system. When you are hitting the external system through the batch class, that means you are sending the data from Salesforce to the external system through the batch class. You can do maximum of 10 callouts. So the start, execute, finish method can implement up to 10 callouts. Here is the confusion they will ask. If I say that 10 callouts, can you tell me that start method, how many callouts will happen? Execute method, how many callouts will happen? Finish method, how many callouts will happen? So they will make you confuse it, but do not get confused that. So if you have 1,000 records, okay, and with the scope of 200, the batch class is divided. So the default is 200, like divided into the 5 batches. Okay, what will happen is here you have 1,000 records. 1,000 records of with the scope of 200 records, then they are divided into the 5. So that means 1,000 by 5 equal to 200 records. So what will happen here is your start method will execute 10 callouts. Execute method, what will happen here is you have a batch divided by 5. You have a batch divided by 5. So this is a confusion question in the interview. They will make you a lot of confusion here, but do not get confused. Whenever they ask what is the limit of the how many callouts can be happen, 10 callouts. There is no doubt in that. If they give a scenario there are 1,000 records are there. Per 1,000 records, how your start method, how many callouts are happening in the start method, how many callouts will happen in the execute method, how many callouts will happen in the finish method. So ask them that, is the batch class is divided by any, like while executing it, are we specifying any count there, or is it like a default 200? Is it like a default 200? If they say that yes, it is divided by the batch 5. Okay, so database.executable, and you can give the batch class comma 5. If they give a 5, then calculate here your execute method. By default it is a 10 callouts. That means each execute method is 10 callout. Each execute method is 10 callout into 5 times. So it will be 50 callouts are going to happen. And finally, finish method 10 callouts. That means here only the issue is with the execute. So execute is basically per transaction, it will execute 10 callouts. So total 50 callouts are going to happen there. That's totally fine, which can be happen. And here total out of this callouts are 70 callouts in entire operation. 70 callouts in entire operation. So we have to specify them. It's depending on how we are dividing the batches to execute it. Based on that, execute method is going to execute those many times, multiply by 10 callouts. That means each method has a 10 callouts, and execute method will be 10 callouts per each transaction, each execution of the batch. Now,
But Sapna, if it is 50, then it will not hit the this limit.
no, that is, no, we are not overall 50 it is doing here. Each execution, it is taking the 10 callouts.
Per execution.
B1,
But
10 callouts.
okay, so when you say 10 callouts in the start, okay, what does that making 10 API calls to the external system, or what is it? 10
Yeah,
callouts.
if you are doing any query from the external system, or external system is passing the query to you.
Okay. So means you are calling the API 10 times. So you will fetch all the records from the external system. In the execute, means you will get 1,000 records from the external system, right? In the start.
10 times you are not calling here. Each execution is 10 callouts.
I did not understand what is call out you're saying. Can you explain, please?
Each transaction, first time start method get executed. Okay, it
Yes.
got all the information. The limit is 10 callouts. Okay, callouts is nothing but there is a limit I'm talking about here. 10 callouts is the limit, but start method will execute only one time. Within that one time, it is going to, that means here it is happening only one callout. Here it is happening one call. Each transaction will have a limit of 10 callouts. Like this, I have an execute method. First time it will execute. So the B1, so the B1 will, whenever it is executing it, the 10 callouts will happen. And then B2, 10 callouts will happen. So B3, 10 callouts will happen. And finish method, if you are doing any emails to send, then it is 10 callouts are happening. So it is saying that up to 10 callouts for each.
Okay.
And the governor limits for the asynchronous. Asynchronous is having a maximum number of asynchronous Apex method execution is per 24 hours. It's not for the specific batch Apex, or it is not for the future method, or it is not for the queuable. It is for the asynchronous. Per 24 hours period, it will, the asynchronous Apex method execution will happen 2,50,000. Now, is it a standard here? No, it is not a standard. it will change based on your users. That means the number of user license in your org multiply by 200. If you have a 10 users, or if you have a 2000 users, multiply by 200. So whichever is the highest one, you can take, that is the execution. Okay, somebody was asking yesterday that within 24 hours, how many executions can happen on the batch class? It's not for the specific batch class, it is entirely for the asynchronous. Execution of the asynchronous can happen within the 24 hours based on the users that are exist in the org. So for each user, license and multiply with 200. That means each users will have a 200. So the execution of the batch or execution of the future execution of the queuable execution of the schedule apex will be happen whatever this multiplication is there, or whichever the highest one is there. If you have a 10 users, then it is the lowest one. So by default, it will take this 2,50,000. That's all for today. Conclusion, we have gone through the use case of batch class, email programming, messaging, single email message. We have seen the different methods, send the email, use case of email programming. And we have seen the Garner limits of the batch class, Garner limits of the asynchronous, and Garner limits of the email programming. There are some trial heads. I'll give you these trial heads. This is one. The first one is an asynchronous one, and the next one is a batch. Okay. That's all for today.